Good afternoon to all of you. Am I audible? Am I visible? Give me a sound check. Very good afternoon to all of you. Okay, so let's resume our discussion. So, uh, yesterday we started with classical liberalism. The only fair is laissez-faire, and we talked about the fact that liberalism itself is further divided into numerous strands. Sometimes when uh, we want to convey that a particular set of ideas is further divided into more set of ideas, then we use the term meta narratives. Narrative and meta narrative. If I want to say that what is the school of thought to which you belong, or what is the school of thought with which you associate yourself, that means I'm asking you what is your ideology. And you can say I am a person who belongs to liberal ideology. Let's say for the sake of example. So liberalism and whatever yesterday we the conceptualizations of liberalism we studied yesterday, they are all part of a set of ideas, and that's one ideology. We'll also call it narrative. That's one narrative. Liberalism is one narrative, and within liberalism there are further more narratives. These are meta narratives. Okay, these meta narratives are classical liberalism, modern liberalism, etc., etc. So it's a over encompassing term when we call it liberalism. The right argument or a set of articulation should be okay, what kind of liberal are you? Are you a classical liberal? Are you a modern liberal? Are you a neoliberal? What kind of liberal are you? Because there are further narratives within liberalism. So just the terminology I'm telling you. Okay, very quick revision of what we did yesterday. We started with classical liberalism, and first of all, set of thinkers: John Locke, Adam Smith. Today we'll be talking a little bit more about these thinkers. David Ricardo, Herbert Spencer. I'll add more to this. We have Thomas Paine. We also have a very important person which I missed yesterday, Jeremy Bentham. Okay, today we'll see his ideas, Jeremy Bentham. So Locke, Adam Smith, and Jeremy Bentham. These three, they're very, very important. Anyway, classical liberal ideas, the basic uh, set of ideas within classical liberalism: conception of human nature, society, state, economic and social policy. Through this, we are trying to conceptualize classical liberalism. Before we do classical liberalism, we also talked about the fact that what are the main assumptions of liberals. Liberals believe in the supreme importance of an individual over any other social group. This basically is the definition for individualism. Second, liberals believe that man has the capacity to reason, so he's a reasonable creature. Third, the liberals say that the man should enjoy freedom, or he has the right to have freedom. These three are the core ideas of liberalism. Then, when we talked about classical liberals, the classical liberals view man as an egoistic individual who is self-interested and unable to understand the interests of others. That is why the main driving force of man is competition and self-interest, and cooperation is something which cannot happen, at least from this point of view. Society is nothing but a marketplace where transactions take place. The humans will go, they'll realize their self-interest, and they'll come back. This conception of society can also be understood through the expression man is prior to society. Then the conception of state is considered as evil because it will restrict your liberty through its laws. Liberty is further defined as absence of restraints or constraints. Today we'll change this definition of liberty. Okay, so state is evil, but the state is a necessary evil because the state is going to ensure security. The state is going to take care of enforcement of contracts. We need security. We need an entity for enforcement of contracts so that we can lead our good life, and we can, by using liberty, keep on realizing a good life. So my end of life is I want to have my own good life. For that, what I do is I need rights. One of the most important rights is right to liberty. Now, on that island where I sent you yesterday, you are using your liberty, leading a good life, or at least conceptualizing a good life for yourself. But while doing so, you want the state to take care of the border security as well as the law and order, and you want the state to act as a neutral arbitrator. The state should act as a neutral arbitrator. Who is a neutral arbitrator? Neutral arbitrator is nothing but a referee in a match. He's neutral. He's not on this side. He's not on that side. He is going to implement the rules which have been agreed upon by both the parties. So if it's a cricket match, the umpire is going to give the decisions as per a certain set of rules which have been decided earlier. Similarly, if you enter into a contract with someone else, the contract has all the terms and conditions which will be applicable to both the parties. And if there is a dispute, then I want the state to come and resolve it. Why I want the state to do all these things? Because at the end of the day, I want to lead my good life using my liberty. But if there is no security and if there is no entity to enforce the contracts, I will not be able to lead a good life. So I want a state. This is the necessary reason for having a state. The evil reason we talked about earlier. Through this, we conceptualize the state in the terms of minimal state, night's watchman state, or the laissez-faire state. Three terms will be used by the classical liberals to define state. Now, the state is not expected to intervene in the economy. That's the idea of Adam Smith and David Ricardo. And the state has to ensure that there is equality of opportunity. Further, the state should not do welfare activities. Today, for all these ideas, I'll make you write all these ideas from the perspective of thinkers. As of now, I have explained you the ideas. Now we'll write today, but we'll do the writing part later on. First, we will see in this evolution, one set of ideas have come, and in Europe, they are conceptualizing their life on this set of ideas. Now, the transition will take place, and we are going to move towards modern liberalism or the liberalism of the 20th century. So, I have a time period of 1910, 20, 30, 40, and a lot of events are happening during this time. What are the events? During this time, let's see from this perspective. I have the early 20th century, and in early 20th century, what is happening? There is a situation of unemployment. There is a situation of poor wages. There is a situation of poverty, and there is a situation of inequality also. Now, the problem is, I have shifted my mode of production. I have given up the feudal way of living and I have entered into the modern age whereby, with the help of liberal ideas, I have created a new kind of a society. Now, in this new kind of society, what is happening is, the society which was moving forward, it saw that there were a lot of economic problems coming up in the society in the form of unemployment, poor wages, poverty, or inequality. And during this time, a lot of discussion is going on that how to handle them. In order to handle them, first we need to understand what is the cause of this. The cause of this was attributed to the economic policies which were followed in the last 200 years. What are the economic policies being followed in the last 200 years? Economic policies state should not do any intervention in the economy, but equality of opportunity is being given. The problem was when we went ahead and we incorporated the liberal ideas. In these liberal ideas, one very important idea which came in the thoughts of John Locke was, John Locke said that every individual has a right to life, liberty, and property. Now, the life and the liberty part, the life part is basically subsumed under liberty only. The main idea is you all have liberty. So fine, we know, okay, it's a liberal world, liberty is important, it's fine. The second important thing was property. Now this is a very, very important idea in liberal thought. I should be the one owning property. In feudal times, I told you, the serf did not have an opportunity to own the property. So the idea was, now I want to change the system so that I can also own property. If I can own property, first of all, I need to have a theoretical basis. Locke is providing the theoretical basis. When we do Locke, I'll tell you how he has provided defense for private property. But Locke is saying, okay, everyone has a right to property, given the condition that you have to appropriate property in an honest manner by using your labor. You can't appropriate property in a dishonest manner. चोरी नहीं कर सकते, ऐसे चोरी से ली गई प्रॉपर्टी तुम्हारी नहीं है, वो जस्टिफाइड नहीं है. But whatever you have through your own labor and through honest means, that belongs to you undoubtedly. Now this was a revolutionary idea. Why? Because the serf is saying, if I can do the hard work, I'll also be able to get the property. And that is what the importance of Locke's idea is. Locke's ideas are empowering that serf to go into the society, make people or convince people with this idea and change the system. When Locke came up with this idea, this is where we see capitalism coming. What is capitalism? Capitalism is nothing but the ownership of means of production in private hands. So now people are able to get property. Not only zamindars are having property, but there is a new class coming up which can own property. Later on, we'll be calling this class as the capitalist class or the bourgeois class. This capitalist class now is owning property. So what happened in actually England was that in the 18th century, when industrial revolution took place and capitalist ideology became the dominant ideology, तो उस समय क्या हुआ? The people who were able to get land, अब हिस्ट्री में ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि लैंड जो है वो सही तरीके से ही ओन की गई हो, गलत तरीके से एक्सप्लॉयटेशन करके लोगों को मार के अपनी जमीन से हटा के, ऐसा भी सब हुआ है. रादर इन द 18th century England, there was this entire phase where the land of the farmers were taken away, and on that factories were created by the capitalists. So I have a situation whereby a certain set of people, they are owning land. Now because of the industrial revolution, on this patch of land a factory is coming up, and in this factory those farmers who were dispossessed of their land, they are being forced to work as workers who will be given their wages. This is what is happening in the 18th century England when the industrial revolution came and the capitalist ideology became dominant. During this time, what we are seeing is, in these factories, these are working. The workers are working and their condition is deplorable. So the factory owner is forcing them to work for 12 hours. The factory worker is forcing the women and children also to come and work there and is not even paying them good money, or the wages were not regulated back then. So there were very few, or very, you can say the wages were limited. That's the situation in England, 18th century. And the situation continued for a good period of 100-150 years, after which we saw that these are the problems. So these problems are actually the result of this system. Now, stay with me because I'm going to make some transitions here. What we are doing is, we are saying there is a feudal system which has some problems, as a result of which the capitalist system comes, and now we have problems with the capitalist system also. This is mode of production, this is mode of production. In capitalist mode of production, liberalism is the ideology, political ideology. Capitalism is economic system, liberalism is my political ideology. Okay, they go hand in hand. Capitalism and liberalism will always go hand in hand. Capitalism, liberalism, they are growing, and during this time we have industrial revolution. Now the society which came out of this resulted in some problems, And these problems now are being addressed later on in the early 20th century when we are going to make some changes. So first, feudalism is giving way to capitalism, whereby we are entering into the modern times. The liberal ideology is coming, accompanied by industrial revolution, whereby factories are coming up, where the workers are working. Now the problem is, in this system, the situation of workers is poor. As a result of which, we have problems like this coming up. I'll give you an Indian example to this. When you read your modern Indian history, you'll come across the Factories Act of 1881. Factories Act of 1881. The act was passed so as to regulate the conditions of workers who are working in Indian factories. Now the problem was, in Indian factories, the workers who were working, their condition was also deplorable. So they did not have the protection of wages or minimum wages, I beg your pardon. They also did not have the protection in the sense that the government did not regulate the factory owners and their activities. आज की डेट में तो लेबर यूनियन बन जाती है, बहुत सारे लेबर राइट्स हैं, पहले नहीं होता था ऐसा. So earlier, during that time, the Factories Act was passed so as to regulate the Indian factories, and as a result of which the working hours of workers, especially the women and children, were also being employed at back then. Their working hours were regulated, they were brought down, and some protective gear was to be provided by the factory owners to the workers. For example, जो mining करते हैं उनके लिए protective gear होना चाहिए. So these kinds of provisions were incorporated in this Factories Act of 1881. So see, towards the end of the 19th century, what we are seeing is we have started taking measures so as to regulate them. But why are we not initially regulating it? We are not initially regulating it because the classical liberals are saying, don't intervene in the economy. You stay out of the economy. Further, if the people's condition is poor, then you can't come and do welfare activities also. The prescriptions of classical liberals, through which the society was created in Europe, ended up creating a lot of problems, and now we are looking to solve the problems in the early 20th century. How to solve the problems? Two ways things are being done, I'll tell you that. So we have some problems. There is deplorable condition of people who are working in factories. There is inequality. So capitalism, as it grows, it creates inequalities. Elon Musk has immense wealth. Over a period of last few decades, his wealth has grown substantially. At the same time, a huge chunk of the population of the world, they have been pushed, I can't say they have been pushed into poverty, but their situation remains largely same, or their standard of living might have come down. In this situation, whenever we talk about capitalism, and we'll be later on doing the analysis and the evaluation, the problem with capitalism is it breeds inequalities. And to what extent inequalities can be accepted, that in itself is a big question, because if there is huge inequality in the society, the section of society which is not getting their share, they are definitely going to make a revolt, or they are definitely going to mobilize, and they are going to raise the banner of revolt. ये होने ही होने वाला है, सोसाइटी में होता ही होता है. तो ये एक इनहेरेंट एस्पेक्ट है कैपिटलिज्म का, जो उसको अनस्टेबल भी बना सकता है. Anyway, coming back, so all these problems are being seen as a result of classical liberalism, and during this time an event happened which is the Great Depression of 1929. The Great Depression of 1929, this was a major event which forced us to rethink how we are doing things. How we are doing things? We were doing things as per the framework set by the classical liberals. So Adam Smith is saying the invisible hand of market is going to regulate everything, and the governments need not intervene in the economy. The end result of that was this and this. So what to be done now? In this particular situation, now two different schools of thought are emerging. One school of thought is the school of thought of modern liberalism. So liberals, they are themselves recognizing the problems of classical liberals and they are suggesting some way forward. So modern liberalism will come. At the same time, there is another school of thought which is socialism, which grew in the ideas of Karl Marx. They are also coming and they are also criticizing the classical liberals. So the story moves in this direction, that from feudalism we are coming towards capitalism, and now in capitalist systems today also we have economic system of capitalism only. This capitalism adopted liberal ideas. Now because of problems, I have seen two different schools of thought emerging. One is absolutely different in the form of socialism, and one is within liberalism only, which is called as modern liberalism. So that's how the evolution took place. We'll not be discussing this now. First, we'll complete entire liberalism, then we'll go there. But we'll be first talking about the modern liberalism. So this evolution is happening, and now we reach the first half of 20th century. During this time, we have people writing, and the prominent modern liberals are first J.S. Mill, second T.H. Green, third John Maynard Keynes. Okay. First, I'll discuss Keynes' ideas. The ideas of Adam Smith and David Ricardo, which became the basis of the economic policy during the times of 18th and 19th century, now this is being challenged by John Maynard Keynes in the 20th century, whereby he is making a fundamental difference in the way in which things are to be done, which things? Economic policy. The economic policy of classical liberals. No intervention by state in the economy. Adam Smith used to say there is an invisible hand which takes care of demand and supply, and the invisible hand of the invisible hand in the market, which is going to take care of the demand and supply cycle, will ensure that we keep on moving in a direction which is prosperous for us. So his book's title was The Wealth of Nations. That's the way the wealth will be created, he says. That's the economic policy. John Maynard Keynes is making a fundamental difference, whereby he is saying this is a wrong way of doing things, and he is saying what we need is we need state intervention. So the fundamental change which is coming in the way of thinking is no intervention to state intervention. What will the state do? In your economics, you will read about aggregate demand. Aggregate demand, there is a formula for aggregate demand. The aggregate demand in the economy is a sum of consumption, investments, net exports, and the government steps. This is Keynes. Adam Smith will say this should not be there. This is how the aggregate demand should be seen. The government need not be a factor in influencing the demand. But Keynes says no, the government has to come. How does the government come in the economy? The government comes in the economy through the fiscal policy. Okay. The fiscal policy is the government policy whereby the government is going to tax people, generate revenue, and the government is going to do expenditure. So in our budget, we have the budget which is uh, tabled every year. That is nothing but the fiscal policy of the government, the revenue statement, and the expenditures which the government is going to do. Okay. So that's the fundamental change which Keynes is bringing. And after this, I would say this is the time period of 1930s. Since 1930s till today, what we have is, we have this. We are governing our economy in this fashion whereby the state intervenes. In case of India, I can give you the example that the state is going to allocate a lot of money for the building of infrastructure. That money comes in the economy. Or the state is going to, let's say, provide employment either from the public sector enterprises, or the state is going to, let's say, provide livelihood support in the form of initiatives like MG Narega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Both ways, the state is coming into the economy trying to make changes. Whenever, now I'll tell you, very recently I met one of my friends, and he's an employee of the ONGC, so the Oil and Natural Gas Corporation of India, the PSU. And he was very happy because the government was considering a hike in dearness allowance, DA. तो सरकार जब डीए बढ़ाती है तो उससे होता क्या है कि सरकारी एम्प्लॉयज के हाथ में पैसा और आता है. वो पैसा जाएगा कहाँ? वो पैसा यहाँ आएगा, वो इसको इन्फ्लुएंस करने में काम आएगा. वो इकोनॉमी में आके कंजम्पशन की तरह आएगा, या हो सकता है इकोनॉमी में इन्वेस्टमेंट की तरह आ जाए. ऑल्दो यहाँ पर इन्वेस्टमेंट इज लार्जली द इन्वेस्टमेंट्स ऑफ द corporate entities, but the money is going to come in the economy, and that's how the government has played a role in the economy by giving more money in the hands of the employee. Why the government will do it? Obviously, one reason is साल दर साल आपको उनको पैसा भी तो देना है ज़्यादा employees को. There's another reason also. That reason has to do with the aggregate demand. More on that later on. Now, if you see here, I'm changing the economic policy in which things have to be done. That's one change which the modern liberals are bringing. J.S. Mill and T.H. Green, they are making fundamental changes to who the man is. What is the nature of man? Classical liberals, they view man as an egoistic individual. I told you. J.S. Mill is saying your conception is wrong. J.S. Mill is saying your conception is wrong. Why? Man can understand the interests of others and can cooperate. This is problematic for classical liberals. They don't believe in this. I don't know what you believe in, whether the individuals can think about the concerns of others or the interests of others or not. And we are not talking about family, obviously. In family, you have, let's say, there is emotions. We are talking about, can you understand the interests of someone else? There, the classical liberals, they don't believe. J.S. Mill says yes. At this point of time, let me add another idea. That is the idea of utilitarianism. जेरेमी बेंथम का नाम सुना है? जेरेमी बेंथम. He is a person credited with utilitarianism. Look, as I told you that there is this huge debate that what is reality, idea is real or matter is real. On the same lines, we also want to discuss whether your pleasure, man is a pleasure seeking being. I will look for pleasure. I would reduce those scenarios which increase my pain. Increase the scenarios which lead to pleasure, reduce the scenarios which lead to pain. That's a fundamental human behavior. Jeremy Bentham says, your pleasures are all materialistic in origin. Meaning, you can never think about pleasure at the level of your spirit. You can never think about pleasure by sacrificing yourself. Try to understand this. Classical liberals are saying man is an egoistic individual, driven by self-interest, fine. Jeremy Bentham is saying man is driven by pleasure. He's driven by self-interest. It's his self-interest, undoubtedly. He's driven by pleasure. He will do all those things which brings him pleasure. That is also something which we all agree with. But he goes on to say that you can't get pleasure by sacrificing yourself. And that is why whenever we are looking at pleasure, we are looking at something which is materialistic in origin, materialistic in orientation, not spiritual, not something at the level of psyche, not something at the level of metaphysics. No. Whatever I can see, okay, this cell phone, new iPhone gives me pleasure. A new car gives me pleasure. All these are pleasures. Sacrificing your needs maybe so that somebody else is taken care of or is happy. That is something which man does not understand. That is what Jeremy Bentham is saying. In utilitarianism, whatever has utility for you, whatever will bring pleasure to you, you will do that. So you will eat biryani because it brings pleasure. अच्छी लगती है. बैंगन का भरता नहीं अच्छा लगता, नहीं खाना. ठीक है. Why would you take any decision which brings you pain? Obviously, you will not want to. But J.S. Mill now comes and he says, Jeremy Bentham, you are wrong. Man can also sacrifice himself for the happiness of others, for the concern of others. Bentham will say, how can he do so? Why would you not do a thing which brings you pleasure? And why would you do a thing which brings you pain? You will not do anything which brings you pain. No. J.S. Mill says, look, sometimes by enduring pain, by making sacrifices, you may be able to derive a certain psychological level of happiness or happiness at the spiritual level. Bentham says, I don't understand what you're saying. People can give up their dreams. People can give up their dreams and start, studying for UPSC for the happiness of their parents. Can be done. You may be sacrificing something which is dear to you. You may be undertaking an action which is not something which brings you comfort for someone else's happiness, for someone else's concern, and eventually their happiness will give you happiness, but it will not be a material happiness. Can this happen or not? Mill says fundamental human nature is not so self-centered. Fundamental human nature involves looking at happiness from a much broader perspective and not only material pleasures of life. Do you think Bentham is right or do you think Mill is right? Because what Mill is trying to do is, Mill is trying to change the conceptions by which we have created the society, the classical liberal society, which is man is egoistic. He can't think of the others and he will always look for his own pleasures. See, looking for own pleasures is not something which we can deny. For a common person, it is very difficult for a common person who is not well read or who does not understand the intricacies of the universe or the life. एक कॉमन इंसान के लिए यही होता है कि वो एक्शन बोलेगा, इससे उसका प्लेजर फुलफिल होता है. I'll give you an example. इलेक्शन के समय एक मजदूर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी से 1000 रुपए ले लेगा, दारू ले लेगा, खाना ले लेगा और उसको वोट डाल देगा. इमीडिएट प्लेजर है. He can't think, oh, my vote is going to a criminal and he will go and enter the politics. No. He's like, I am getting, मुझे रात का खाना मिल रहा है, रात की लिकर मिल रही है, पैसा मिल रहा है, my pleasure is there, finish. That's what is the thinking of a common man. We are not saying that is wrong. Bentham is not wrong because his ideas are more relevant for a person who is probably not a person who is enlightened or a person who is just thinking about his immediate pleasures. But Mill is saying man has the capacity to think more, and that is when he can undertake actions whereby he let go of such kind of pleasures for something which is going to come later on, which is more important. Mill will say this. But if Mill is saying this, then he has to do a fundamental revision of what the classical liberals are saying with respect to human nature. So the modern liberals which are coming up, they have changed how the economic policy should be there. We are changing this part. No intervention to intervention. Modern liberals are also going to come and they are also going to change the concept of human nature. They don't believe in the way the things are believed by classical liberals. Further, the modern liberals are going to come and say society is not just a marketplace. Rather, society is an organic institution. What is the meaning of this? Marketplace is mandi. Mandi has no relevance for you other than the fact that you go there, get the product, come back. That's it. Finish. But the moment I call society as organic, what is the meaning of this? And this word will come again and again in our studies, organic. Organic means the society has grown in a natural fashion in the needs of man. It's my need to be in the society. And society is not simply a mandi. It is much more than that. Again, another idea. One idea is it is marketplace. Another idea is it is not a marketplace. It is something which is having more relevance for man. Let's try to understand this. At this point of time, let me bring in Aristotle. Although we'll be doing Aristotle later on, but Aristotle's one particular idea I have to bring in. Aristotle has given a very good analysis of how things have happened. In science, we understand that okay, there is a proton, there is a neutron, there is an electron, which makes an atom, and atom is something which is here, which makes mass, and that is how the entire universe across us works. At the basic level, when we try to understand things in natural world, the world which we see, the physics is going to try to do that. Physics is trying that okay, what's the fundamental reality? The fundamental reality is there is an atom, and when atoms come together, they make matter, and what you see is nothing but matter. Your body is also nothing but matter. It is made up of atoms. So anything which you come across is nothing but matter. That's fine. Then we keep on fighting about oh matter के अंदर atom है, atom के अंदर proton है, उसके अंदर भी कुछ मिल गया है, अब उसके अंदर boson particle है. That's a separate thing. But that's how physics would try to explain the natural world to you. Social sciences will try to explain the social world. So जब social world में आते हैं, the first question comes is, okay, there was this human being, sometime he came, why there was a need for him to get into the institution of marriage? अकेले नहीं चल रहा था क्या? And if the need was only reproduction, then reproduction can happen without marriage also. Where's the problem? But man created marriage as an institution. After creating marriage as an institution, the family as an institution came into being. So first I have a man, He creates marriage as an institution, social institution. Then family as a social institution comes. Then we all start fighting amongst each other. Oh, my religion is this, your religion is that. Then we get our own religions, we get our own castes, and then we make a village, and then we make a district, and then we make a state. That's how we kept on complicating our social lives. And today we have this system going on. We have a state, we have a district, we have a block, we have a village, we have a community, we have family. Uh, that's how the social life is. And then we keep on interacting with each other at all points of time. We'll make this complex as we move forward, but the basic idea is we are trying to understand how the social life works. Why we have something called religion. What's the need of it? Like you're born into a family and then you are told that, oh, this is the truth, and then you live by this. Okay, and that's incorporated into your psyche, and you grow with it, you socialize with it, and that's how you start living. And so we have different religions in the world, and things will keep on moving that way. Okay, fine. At this point of time, you need to understand one thing. I'm trying to explain things, social things, in which society is coming. Society आ गई क्यों? मेरी need है. It is important to me. It is not just a place like Mandi. It is something where I go, I interact, I feel fulfilled, and I come back. That is what society is. So my conception of society is not that it is a Mandi. My conception of society is it's an organic institution which has come up in the needs of the man. If it is a need of the man, man will give importance to it and man will put energy into it. And I will have to then give back to society also. If it is important to me, I will be cooperative towards other beings if it is important to me. Classical liberals are saying there is nothing like this. Man has nothing to do with society except the fact he'll go there, he will exchange goods and services, come back. Modern liberals are saying this is very mechanical and transactional way of looking at society. On the contrary, society has some value for man, and that is how the modern liberals are going to change this conception of society also. They are going to change this conception of society. So they are changing economic policy, they are changing human nature, they are changing concept of society. Now they will say state is not evil also. Classical liberals have said state is evil. Modern liberals are saying no, state is not evil. How they will say that, I'll not explain that part to you as of now. Zyada ho jayega. Pehle let's write. So the last point which we wrote yesterday, can you quickly let me know what was the last point which we wrote yesterday? I think we had written the major assumptions of liberalism, if I'm not wrong. Did we write anything for classical liberalism yesterday? Please quickly let me know and then we'll start. Okay, then write for classical liberalism. Right. Classical liberalism was the earliest liberal tradition. Classical liberalism was the earliest liberal tradition full stop. The classical liberal ideas developed during the transition from the classical liberal ideas developed during the transition from feudalism to capitalism. The classical liberal ideas developed during the transition from feudalism to capitalism. full stop. The cradle of classical liberalism was United Kingdom. The cradle, you understand what is cradle? Cradle क्या होता है? The cradle of classical liberalism was the cradle of classical liberalism was United Kingdom, where the capitalist where the capitalism I'll repeat. The cradle of classical liberalism was United Kingdom, where the capitalist and industrial revolution began. Right, in this manner, where the capitalist and industrial revolution began. At this point of time, I would also ask you to read the 9th and 10th class NCERT of world history. It will be beneficial in understanding these ideas more, whereby you will get to know the rise of industrial revolution as well as capitalism. So 9th class NCERT by Arjun Dev. You can read it in the form, you can try to read it in the form of a storybook, although it's not the right reference, but still, the 9th class NCERT of world history by Arjun Dev, you'll be able to relate a lot of things. Okay. Let's resume. The cradle of classical liberalism was United Kingdom, where the capitalist and industrial revolution began. Full stop. Later on, it spread to other parts of Europe. Later on, it spread to other parts of Europe and reached the United States of America as well. And reached the United States of America as well. See, next paragraph, right? Features of classical liberalism. Features of classical liberalism. Okay, so we'll be writing all these features. First, conception of human nature. Conception of human nature, put a hyphen and then write. Conception of human nature, put a hyphen and write. Classical liberals subscribe to egoistic individualism. Classical liberals subscribe to egoistic individualism. Underline egoistic individualism. This is a keyword for us. In political science, we are going to be using a lot of keywords, and all our answers should have keywords no matter what. Continue. Full stop. For them, human nature is self-seeking. For them, human nature is self-seeking and a human cannot understand the interests of fellow human beings, and a human cannot understand the interests of fellow human beings. Second, conception of society. Right. They believe society is a marketplace. They believe society is a marketplace, underline marketplace, where the individuals only come together, where the individuals only come together to fulfill their interests, to fulfill their interests. Full stop. There is no inherent need of society. There is no inherent need of society for humans. For humans. Full stop. This is expressed in the expression man is prior to society. This is expressed in the expression man is prior to society. Put it in inverted commas. Man is prior to society. Continue writing. This conception of society is criticized by other schools of thought. This conception of society is criticized by other schools of thought like idealists, socialists, like idealists, socialists, conservatives, and communitarians. And communitarians. Now, as of now, I have not discussed with you idealism, socialism, conservatism, communitarianism. When it will come, then you will be able to make more sense of this expression which we have written. But as of now, just keep writing these things at one place. Full stop. For these schools of thought, society is organic. For these schools of thought, society is organic. And not simply a marketplace. Third, conception of state. Right. For Thomas Paine, state is a necessary evil. For Thomas Paine, state is a necessary evil. Thomas Paine. The spellings of Thomas Paine they are written here. Paine. For Thomas Paine, state is a necessary evil. Full stop. It is evil because it imposes restrictions on the individuals. It is evil because it imposes restrictions on the individuals. But it is necessary. But it is necessary as it undertakes. But it is necessary as it undertakes crucial functions. But is necessary as it undertakes crucial functions of providing security, and enforcement of contracts. And enforcement of contracts. Continue. After full stop. Such conception of state is also called as minimal state. Such conception of state is also called as minimal state or night's watchman state or the laissez-faire state. Or the laissez-faire state. Next point. Conception of economic and social policy. Conception of economic and social policy. Right. For classical liberals, state should not intervene in economic affairs. For classical liberals, state should not intervene in economic affairs. Full stop. For Adam Smith, comma, a laissez-faire state. For Adam Smith, a laissez-faire state will ensure wealth of nations. For Adam Smith, a laissez-faire state will ensure wealth of nations. Full stop. Next paragraph, same point, right? However, classical liberals believe in equality of opportunity. However, classical liberals believe in equality of opportunity and are against any privileges based on factors like religion, race, caste, gender, etc. Religion, race, caste, gender, etc. Next paragraph. Classical liberals do not believe in welfare functions to be performed by the state. Classical liberals do not believe in the welfare functions to be performed by the state. For them, after full stop, for them, there cannot be equality of outcomes. For them, there cannot be equality of outcomes full stop. There can be only equality of opportunity. There can be only there can be only equality of opportunity. Okay, so what is this equality of outcome? I'll briefly tell you, otherwise it's a socialist idea. See, we want equality of opportunity in the sense that everybody should be given the opportunity to make their life a good life, and there should be no arbitrary restrictions. For example, in Indian case, there were arbitrary restrictions that the Dalits, they could not study. So that's arbitrary. It should not be there. Why is it there? Because simply that you are a part of a certain community, and that community is also a creation of the society. So such kind of arbitrariness is something which we don't want, which we cannot accept. However, uh, when it comes to outcomes, I am saying give everyone the opportunity, but obviously everyone has their different capabilities. Everyone is not as hardworking. Everyone cannot be as ambitious. So depending on people how they are, they will achieve something in life. So if somebody starts, if let's say two people start as poor and one goes on to become rich and the other goes on to become only, let's say, only ends up in a lower middle class, in a system which provides equality of opportunity, then this outcome is justified. I cannot have an outcome whereby both will end up at the same place. No. Why? This is wrong. We have to reward somebody who is more meritorious, as a result of which naturally in the society there will become some classes. Somebody will be poor, somebody will be rich, somebody will be poor. If it is a result of their capabilities, it is a result, if it is a result of their hard work, and it is not a result of arbitrary restrictions, then it is justified. But if somebody continues to be rich because some other people are not even getting the opportunity to, let's say, appropriate resources, that is wrong. So I'll provide to both the same starting point, but if they end up in different endpoints because of their own capabilities, that is justified. Later on, we'll talk about socialism. Socialism will talk about bringing uniformity when it comes to outcomes also. And that is something which the classical liberals don't believe in. If I want to have same outcomes, what I'll say, take from the rich, give to poor. Liberals will not support this. This is nothing but welfare also. What we have done in India, or what we tried to do in India, was that after independence, we tried to take away land from the rich and we tried to give it to the poor. Why? Because we said this is the scenario and let's try to bring it here. If not equal, then okay. Let's try to reduce the differences. There's a huge difference. Let's try to reduce the differences. So, in this situation, what happens is I want justice in the society. I want some sense of justice. The classical liberal says that you create the same starting point. If later on this happens, not a problem. Socialist will say, because this is the situation, your effort should be to reduce this. So that's a clear diagrammatically opposite views of both. But these are two very important ideas on which we'll be doing a lot of debate in the coming times, whether there should be equality of opportunity or we can also have equality of outcomes, which is a better way of, let's say, which is a better way of economic policy. Okay. So there's a doubt coming. Can you repeat what is the meant by state is organic? No, we are not saying state is organic. We are saying society is organic. Okay. We are saying society is organic. Society is the result of my needs. Society is not simply a place of doing transactions. When we talk about mandi, mandi is a place of doing transactions. Okay. We are saying it is not something which I want in my life, which is something which fulfills something in my life. वैसे otherwise when we use the term organic, you will see the term organic being used uh, to suggest something which is a natural outcome. Man was doing fine. What's the need to create institution of marriage and then family? The argument will be, oh, you have to take forward your let's say you want to uh, uh, all animals on the planet, they reproduce and they take forward their genes, so you also want to do that. They said, okay, do it, but why do you need marriage for that? You can do it without marriage also. But we realized that there is a certain benefit of marriage in the form of either companionship or in the form of some kind of, let's say, emotional support. It's not only about reproduction, or it is not only about the fulfillment of material pleasures or hedonistic pleasures. It is also about some emotional support which a man, I'm using man but includes women also, which a man needs. It provides companionship, which is the need. So it naturally came into being. When I say society is organic, that means it has naturally come up. I want to be in the society because it plays a very important role for me. Let's say society gives me a sense of belonging, that I belong to this group. It's a sense of belonging. That has significance for me as a being, as a member of a species. Versus society is nothing, go there, get your job done, come back. Two conceptions. So whenever I would want to suggest something which is a result of my needs, inherent needs, I will use the term organic. And for modern liberals, socialists, idealists, communitarians, society is organic. Okay. I hope this clears the air. If not, do let me know. Others also, if you have any kinds of doubts, feel free to ask me. Initially, there should come doubts. If you're getting everything, that means two things. या सब ऊपर से जा रहा है. The second, you know everything. I don't know. See, I don't know how you look at all these things. My being very enthusiastic with respect to these things have to do with the fact that I really want to analyze the social phenomena, and that is why I read the subject, and that is why I teach the subject also. For you, obviously, this can be okay. What is happening? Like you can have some different inclination also, and you may not be liking. Okay, I'll try to make it more interesting for you, but I would want your involvement. That is very important so that we develop an edge over a period of time. And social sciences, they work this way only. You need to have some creative thinking, and the more you get involved with me, the more I can say things will become easier, and probably you will start having more start developing more interest in the subject. So otherwise, how many of you have any kind of a prior background of pol science or social sciences? Because I knew some of you that you don't have, but others, do you have any kind of a prior exposure to social sciences, or is this absolutely new for you, totally new for you? I don't know how many of you are watching the live. Nowadays, students, they watch it at night. Two of the students, they're watching at night. I understand. The flexibility of online is always there. You have the recorded lectures. See, if the recorded lectures are not available in your folder, the live lecture would be available in the portal. So the live lecture is will only leave that particular place once the recorded reaches the right place. So if you have any kinds of confusion there, just reach out on the team. Reach out to the team on the other number, and they'll help you. Okay. Okay. So we have you have done your graduation in Paul Science. Sanya is saying, okay, Sanya, great. Then you will be able to relate things. in my opinion. Okay, so we were at equality of outcomes. Part is done. Okay, next what you do, we have written all these pointers. What I want you to do is write another point, sixth point or fifth point, it will be whatever it is. So we have written all these. Then I want you to write the concept of freedom. This is also very important, concept of freedom. Right. Freedom from freedom from freedom for classical liberals means freedom from I beg your pardon, freedom for classical liberals means absence of restraints. Underline this, very important. Freedom for classical liberals means absence of restraints. Continue. The individual is free so far. The individual is free so far as he or she is left alone. The individual is free so far as he or she is left alone. Full stop. It means a person is free to the extent. It means a person is free to the extent that he or she is not intervened. It means a person is free to the extent that he or she is not intervened, in his affairs by others. In his affairs by others. In the bracket, write especially state. Especially state. Close the bracket, right? This conception of freedom is also called negative freedom. This conception of freedom is also called negative freedom. Okay. Fine. Now we have written this. Now, after writing the concept, the features of classical liberalism, first, before we move towards modern liberalism, which we have discussed, first you write philosophical basis of classical liberalism. Philosophical basis of classical liberalism. We have discussed this. We'll simply write it down because I want to introduce the exact terminology of thinkers with you. So first is the natural rights theory. Natural rights theory. Put a hyphen and write. John Locke gave the concept of natural rights. John Locke gave the concept of natural rights full stop. These rights are given to man by nature. These rights are given to man by nature and hence cannot be taken away even by the state, and hence cannot be taken away even by the state. Full stop. The natural rights include right to life, liberty, and property. The natural rights include the right to life, liberty, and property. Natural rights. It's a very, very important idea. The basis of this idea is that you have entitlements, but what is the source of the entitlements? The source of the entitlements is nature. They'll use it in exchange with God also. So, God or nature has given you three rights, and nobody can take it away from you, not even the state. Why the state can take it away? Because state is considered to be the supreme social institution which is basically implementing the laws, not only formulating the laws but implementing the laws. So because state is that supreme social institution in a territory, the state may end up taking your rights. And later on, when we do IGP or when you are doing your GS2, you might see that when we talk about fundamental rights, we also talk about reasonable restrictions to be imposed by the state, whereby your rights may be violated or taken away from you, either temporarily or permanently. John Locke has to make this particular idea during that time when he is writing, when still the belief is that humans, they don't enjoy any kind of entitlements. He's coming up because he wants a new system to be created, and he says that when it comes to the right to life, liberty, and property, nobody can take it away from you, not even state. So you will continue to enjoy this till the time you don't have this. Your life is not meaningful. And what we are doing in the Enlightenment times is we are saying individual is the supreme entity. Let's create the system around this individual. So for the individual to lead his conception of good life, he needs rights. And the source has to be nature. That is why nobody can take it away. So the king can't take it away from you. That's the idea. Second philosophical basis. First is the natural rights theory of John Locke. Second is utilitarianism. The thinker is Jeremy Bentham. Right. The principle of utility suggests that the rightness the principle of utility suggests that the rightness of an action can be judged. The rightness of an action can be judged by its tendency. The principle of utility suggests that the rightness of an action can be judged by its tendency to promote pleasure. To promote pleasure. Full stop. If an action enhances pleasure, it is considered right. If an action enhances pleasure, it is considered right. And if it enhances pain, then it is considered wrong. If an action enhances pleasure, it is considered right. And if it enhances pain, it is considered wrong. When we do JS Mill, then we will be discussing this in detail, this idea of utilitarianism. The idea is utility. My actions are defined by utility. This pen has a utility such that it will help me in making things easier for you. That's the principle of utility. And the principle of utility says whatever actions which will enhance pleasure for me, they are right. Now that's a huge statement. We are saying the right and wrong has always been an idea which is highly debated, what is wrong and what is right. Okay, so what is right is something which enhances pleasure. Now, this is also called as hedonism. A hedonistic philosophy justifies everything because it is enhancing pleasure. The problem with such approach is that we may end up justifying quite immoral things also. For example, generally this argument is given in case of prostitution. We can't justify prostitution. Why? You can't call it as a part of your choice also. You can't call it as a part of increasing pleasure. Similarly, we can't justify pornography also. Simply enhancing pleasure. That doesn't mean that activity is right. Obviously, it is it is relating to, in case of pornography, the realization of, let's say, appetites or desires, or it is enhancing pleasure, and that is why it is being done. But it's not something which is right, in the sense that it has huge implications for the society. But unfortunately, utilitarianism says whatever enhances pleasure, that is right. So this is highly reductionist. Later on, we'll criticize this heavily, but this was the viewpoint, and it continues to be the viewpoint. I'm not saying it is not the viewpoint for a lot of people, especially for a common person. Uh, this is how he or she will live. That is why utilitarianism is also sometimes called as the philosophy of a common person. Okay. Anyway, so utilitarianism, Jeremy Bentham, that's one idea which is a very important idea during that time of classical liberalisms coming up. Third is economic liberalism. Economic liberalism. Right. Adam Smith and David Ricardo. Adam Smith and David Ricardo justified an economic model of free market. Justified an economic model of free market. Fourth, social Darwinism. Social Darwinism, right? Herbert Spencer Herbert Spencer, taking inspiration from the survival of the fittest theory. Who gave the survival of fittest theory? Anyone? Okay, Furkan, you are also a graduate in political science, and Dolly, you also have a major in political science. Great. Social Darwinism, Herbert Spencer, taking inspiration from uh, the survival of the fittest theory. Oh, maybe you are also present. Welcome. Taking inspiration from the survival of the fittest theory, advocated that the state should not play any role. Advocated that the state should not play any role in welfare activities. The state should not play any role in the welfare activities and justified the inequalities of wealth, social position, and political power, and justified the inequalities of wealth, social position, and political power as natural as natural, full stop. The state has no responsibility, the state has no responsibility to alter these realities. The state has no the state has no responsibility to alter these realities. Nowadays, we don't agree with this idea. The state has a responsibility to alter these realities, and that is why we have something called reservation also. But earlier, whatever, at least the classical liberals are saying that the inequalities of wealth, social position, political power, they are all justified. The state has to do nothing for this. And in this context, Herbert Spencer, he has done a lot of work, and we consider him as one of the persons responsible for the earliest approach of the European countries towards welfare activities, whereby they did not do welfare activities. Last line in the same paragraph, right? His disciple William Sumner, his disciple William Sumner observed, and write in inverted commas, a drunkard in the gutter is just where he ought to be. A drunkard in the gutter is just where he ought to be. A drunkard, ठीक है? तो अगर कोई ड्रंकर्ड है, वो अपनी जिंदगी खराब कर रहा है, गटर में है, तो ही ought to be in the gutter. उसका गटर में रहना ही बनता है. The state has no responsibility to pick him up from the gutter and do things for him. Okay, that is what is the meaning here. William Sumner, it's a widely quoted remark. A drunkard in the gutter is just where he ought to be. Okay, done. Now we are done with the classical liberalism. Next subheading you make for modern liberalism. Modern liberalism is also called as positive liberalism. Just remember the name. Right. Modern liberalism is called as positive liberalism or 20th century liberalism, full stop. Like the development of classical liberalism was closely linked to the emergence of industrial capitalism. Like the development of classical liberalism was closely linked to industrial capitalism, similarly the modern liberal ideas were closely linked to the further development of capitalism and industrialization. Was closely linked to the further development of capitalism and industrialization. Next paragraph. Social inequality, unemployment, social inequality, unemployment, poor wages, poor wages and deplorable working conditions and deplorable working conditions became difficult to ignore, became difficult to ignore. Full stop. During this time, the socialist thinkers presented a systematic critique. During this time, the socialist thinkers presented a systematic critique of liberal ideas, of liberal ideas. Full stop. At the same time, at the same time, many liberals, at the same time, many liberals started revising the classical liberal ideas. At the same time, many liberals started revising the classical liberal ideas to present a more humane picture, to present a more humane picture, to present a more humane picture of human nature, of human nature. Of human nature. As a result, as a result, they reconceptualized the conception of society and state. As a result, they reconceptualized the conception of society and state. Okay, now you write the features of modern liberalism. Right, first point, conception of human nature. So we are going to change things in the same light. What we have done here, we are going to do a revision of this, a philosophical revision. Okay. Conception of human nature, very quickly, right? For J.S. Mill, human beings aspire for happiness instead of pleasure. For J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill, very important person. So you'll see all the events that are happening in Europe. So it's the Englishmen who are the ones who are making this philosophical revisioning of things. And later on, they'll be joined by the French thinkers also. And you'll see the American intelligentsia comes quite late in the 20th century. They're nowhere to be seen per se. Anyway, right. For J.S. Mill, human beings aspire for happiness instead of pleasure. Full stop. They are not only governed by animalistic desires, they are not only governed by animalistic desires, but they aim for moral and spiritual development, but they aim for moral and spiritual development, full stop. They are able, they are able to cooperate, they are able to cooperate as responsible members of the society. They are able to cooperate as responsible members of the society. Second conception of society, right? Society is natural and organic. Society is natural and organic, which recognizes the rights of an individual. Society is natural and organic, which recognizes the rights of an individual and allows them to fulfill their conception of good life, and allows them to fulfill their conception of good life write a note here. After the second point, write a note. Write a note. It should be noted that modern liberals, it should be noted that modern liberals do not place society, it should be noted that modern liberals do not place society on a higher pedestal. It should be noted that modern liberals do not place society on a higher pedestal than individuals, than individuals, as done by idealists, as done by idealists or socialists, as done by idealists or socialists, full stop. At the same time, they do not take a transactional approach towards society. At the same time, they do not take a transactional approach towards society. Now listen to me carefully. On one hand side, I have liberals, and for liberals, humans are more important than society, and the entire order which is being created by keeping the individual at the center of things. This is different from how idealists or how socialists think of things, and even conservatives. They believe society is more important than individual. So all collective behavior, whether from the perspective of idealists or socialists or conservatives, that collective entity is more important than the individual. Modern liberals, first of all, because we are calling them liberals, liberals will always give more priority to liberty. Whose liberty? Individual's liberty. So for them, no matter what individual is important, all they are saying is, we don't consider society to be simply a mandi. It's not a place only for transactions. It is a place which has importance for man, but we are shying away from saying that it is more important than man. No. Because I am a liberal, and if you are a liberal, for you, liberty is going to be one thing which you cannot compromise on. And if you remember yesterday, I made you write that liberty is one unifying factor for all liberals, whether classical, modern, neo, whatever be the case. They will be hesitant to let go of liberty as an idea. Modern liberals, they are saying we are not letting go of liberty as an idea. All we are saying is we are tampering the position of classical liberals by saying that society is not simply an aggregation of individuals, but it has some organic relevance for man. But now the question comes to modern liberals. So are you saying that society is more important than man? They're saying no. Stop here. We are not going to take that position. That position will be taken by socialists or idealists. So we continue to believe that individuals are more important than society, but you can't simply say that this is aggregation of individuals or this is simply a marketplace. No, they are tampering the situation, tampering the viewpoint of classical liberals, because for classical liberals, society has no relevance at all. They are changing that. Why they are changing that? Because they realize man cooperates, and in that cooperation, there is a certain fulfillment which he realizes as a member of the society. That is also important for him. Okay. Now, before we move forward, just like I told you, idea versus matter, there is another tension which will keep on running in an entire course. That is the tension between liberty and equality. The moment we try to equalize things, we may have to let go of liberty, and that's the problem. The moment we give more importance to liberty, we may end up diluting the claims of equality. What is more important if asked? If I'm asking you to choose, I'm not asking you today, I'll ask you later on, will you choose freedom or will you choose equality? Because there can be a situation whereby they will clash. As students of PSIR, we'll further make a distinction. Where are they clashing? Are they clashing in legal domain, political domain, economic domain, social domain? Let's try to reconcile them to what extent we can. But this entire thing will begin with the assumption that what is more important to you. If you believe individual is more important, then from individual's perspective, liberty is more important. But if you believe society is more important, then you will subsume individual because you want some sense of equality, whatever that is. We are not defining as of now. So you are ready to subsume the individual. If that is the case, it will become the case if your assumption is that society is more important than individual. When we talk about social living, before the modern times, it was always community in the form of society more important than man. We saw the problems there, and that is why the liberal thought is coming, and liberal is saying no, liberty is more important. But as we moved forward, we realized that we also cannot simply say that yes, liberty is the most important ideal and let's not worry about equality. We'll have to bring, and the tension is how to balance them. That's a very, very big question, and we don't have answer to that. One thinker will say this, the other will say this, and the state will adopt some policy and we'll start living, and we'll have problems. We'll come with solutions, we'll implement them, then more issues will come, but we'll keep on fighting liberty versus equality. So one person will say, oh, reservation takes away my liberty because it is reducing the number of seats for me. The other will say, no, we have to consider equity, we have to consider justice, and so it makes sense that we provide for some seats for the disadvantages. Tension will remain. Okay. um, where were we? Chalo. Right. Third concept of state. State is not a necessary evil. State is not a necessary evil. Full stop. It is an entity which helps in the fulfillment of individual goals. It is an entity which helps in the fulfillment of individual goals. Okay, more on that later on. Okay, before we move forward, let me tell you another thing. In our syllabus, we have another topic which is called as theories of state. How the state came into being and what are the features of the state. A lot of portion of theories of state will be covering already in ideologies, although I'll make it, I'll do it separately also for you. But you have to start understanding the entire syllabus. And one part is that we are doing this ideologies. In this ideology, we are also including thoughts of thinkers. So later on, when we do thinkers, you will be able to, relate. And the third is that there is a specific topic of theories of state, in which we basically talk about how the state came into being and what are the features of the state. For example, when we are talking about classical liberalism, the nature of the state is it is minimal. It does not have to do any huge functions. It has to only take care of the security and the enforcement of contracts, calling it a minimal state. How the state came into being, that I'm not burdening you now, but that's basically the idea of social contract. So conception of state, uh, and I was talking about theories of state. I'm talking about the social contract, so that part will come later on. But yes, what I would want you to do is that I'll share a document with you of the syllabus. So what you do at your end is take a printout of that syllabus, and what you should do is you should get it pasted somewhere where you study, and continuously try to make relations to whatever we are doing. Although I'll help you do that, but I would want you also to uh, keep doing it at your end. Okay. So we have written conception of human nature, conception of state is done. Fourth point, economic and social policy. Economic and social policy. Right. For modern liberals, for modern liberals, state intervention in the economy, for modern liberals, state intervention in the economy takes care of unemployment and inflation, takes care of unemployment and inflation, continue, full stop. As per J.M. Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, as per John Maynard Keynes, the invisible, the invisible hand in market, the invisible hand in market, as suggested by Adam Smith, as suggested by Adam Smith, does not work, does not work full stop. Keynes demanded management of economy through government intervention. Keynes demanded management of economy through government intervention. Full stop. Government spending was similar to injection of demand in the economy. Government spending was similar to injection of demand in the economy. Full stop. Eventually, Keynes' ideas were implemented in US. Eventually, Keynes' ideas were implemented in US as a part of Roosevelt's New Deal. Roosevelt's New Deal. President Roosevelt came up with a economic policy that was called as New Deal, in which the main idea was the government is going to play a interventionist role in the economy. Continue. Keynes' ideas were implemented in the US by Roosevelt's New Deal and were later adopted in Europe as well. Full stop. It led to revival of demand. And a phase of unprecedented economic growth. Phase of unprecedented economic growth. Next paragraph. The state was expected to provide development. The state was expected to provide development functions, especially for the vulnerable sections of the society. Full stop. This led to the emergence of welfare state. So in UPSC, in PT, they have earlier asked a question that what part of the constitution basically provides for a welfare state. In our constitution also, there is a provision that we have to do welfare, although that provision is non-justiciable. I am talking about the directive principles of state policy. So DPSP, they incorporate the fact that state has to do development functions. And make no mistake, the idea of welfare state, the idea that state has to provide for the vulnerable sections of the society, it's a relatively new idea which came up only in the last 100 years. And today you will see all states across the world are welfare states. The only difference is some states may do more for people and some states may do less. But no matter what, even the state of America, which is basically the poster boy of capitalism in the world, there also the state is going to do some welfare functions. I'll give you an example. Recently, during the COVID-19 crisis, the state gave unemployment allowance to people. That people are unemployed, now they don't have anything to take care for themselves, so the state gave allowance to them. So the US government, they printed a lot of money and they used to give this allowance to people. It is similar to the concept of the universal basic income, which was sometimes thought of in case of India also, but we don't have that concept here. Okay, fine. आगे चलते हैं. तो I am assuming that I am live. ठीक है. Next, right? Economic and social policy is done. Now, right? Conception of freedom. Very, very important. Very, very important. Conception of freedom. Here we added the concept of freedom. For modern liberals, let's add the concept of freedom or the conception of freedom, right? J.S. Mill and T.H. Green were the main proponents. J.S. Mill and T.H. Green were the main proponents in conceptualizing a new way, to look at freedom, Continue. T.H. Green defined liberty. T.H. Green defined liberty as the freedom to do something worth doing. Please underline this. T.H. Green defined liberty as the freedom to do something worth doing. Full stop. It meant the ability or capacity. It meant the ability or capacity of an individual to fulfill. It meant the ability or capacity of an individual to fulfill his own goals. To fulfill his own goals. First write, then I'll explain you. Write another sentence. इसके बाद लिखिए, liberty was not merely the absence of restraints. Liberty was not merely the absence of restraints, but the conditions necessary. Liberty was not merely the absence of restraints, but the conditions necessary for free and full development of an individual. I'll repeat, liberty was not merely the absence of restraints, but the conditions necessary for the free and full development of an individual. For the free and full development of an individual. Now listen to me very carefully. There was a question regarding the same idea in the prelims also a few years back. So it's not only a topic of PSIR. This aspect has to do with GS also, the polity part. We are conceptualizing. हम डिफाइन कर रहे हैं, डेफिनेशन हमें देनी है. तो लिबर्टी की डेफिनेशन देने गया तो मैंने उसको पहले जिस भी तरीके से डिफाइन किया उसको नेगेटिव बोला गया. Whenever I'll use the word negative in my political science or in your polity, the word negative means state has to restrict itself and not interfere with my things. The moment I say positive, I want the state to intervene. That is first of all the meaning of negative and positive. Here the state will not intervene. On the other hand side, the state is going to intervene. Two things, very, very important. How they are important? Listen to me carefully. I am saying what is liberty, what is freedom for me? Absence of restraints. When I say absence of restraints, I am saying don't place restraints on me. As long as there is no restraint or no constraint, I am free. So if I put a chain around you, you will be restricted and you will say my liberty or my freedom has been taken away. The moment there is no chains around you, you are free. That's the idea here. Absence of restraints. Who will place the chains around you? The chains are not physical chains, the chains are metaphorical chains. Okay, figurative chains क्या है तुम्हारी? Religion ने तुमको बांध दिया, state ने तुमको बांध दिया. You don't want that. Absence of restraints, state will not intervene. The classical liberals, it is coming at a time when you are making a transition from feudal way. And in feudalism, what you have is even the serf is tied to the land where he works. He does not have freedom. In general, the society does not value freedom because the things are done in a traditional setup whereby the privileges of few are fixed and the remaining have to live on the charity of the privileged, whether it is the king, whether it is the nobles or the aristocrats, whatever be the case. So when they conceptualize freedom, they are saying, don't place any kind of restriction on me, neither the society nor the state. We are only including state as of now here. So as long as state will not intervene, and how will the state not intervene? The state should not make many laws. Less laws, more liberty. Why? The law will come and it will try to restrict you. So the laws should not be there, or minimal laws is the idea here. State will not intervene. But now we are looking at things in a very different way when we reach the positive conception of liberty in the 20th century. Modern liberals are saying liberty is my capability to do something worth doing. I want to do something with my life. I want to, let's say, prepare for civil services, or let's say I want to go and open a business. I want to become an entrepreneur, or tomorrow I want to be an artist. I want to do something which is worth doing for me. What is worth doing? That varies from person to person. Do I have the capability and opportunities to go and realize that? If I don't have that, I don't have the taste of freedom. Listen to me, very, very important, in the sense, now I am looking at things from an altogether different perspective. Tell me, okay, I'll ask you a question and you all answer. Let's say you are a capitalist or a person who is the owner of industry and a factory, and you have to employ people. And now you want to generate profit. For that, will you want more intervention of the government or less intervention of the government? The question is, you are the owner of a factory or a mill. मान लेते हैं मिल का ओनर हो तुम किसी, ठीक है? You want to pursue your economic activity, but you are employing a lot of people who are using machines and producing things for you. So you, let's say you have you are a part of a textile industry, you have a power loom, and there are workers who will come and they will use the raw material on your machines, and they are going to produce a good which later on you are going to go and sell to the entire world. The question is, for you, what is a better system? State should come and intervene, in the sense state should come and make laws so as to regulate the entire process, or less number of laws favor you. Think from the perspective of your social position, and your social position is you are the owner of the mill. Now tell me, what is a system? What system works for you? More intervention, less intervention? It will help us understand the idea of liberty, positive and negative. Okay, I have two answers. Both answers are saying less intervention. Why? In my pursuit of profit, I don't want others to come and tell me that, oh, you give workers minimum wage, or you can't make the workers work for more than 12 hours. Today we have all these kinds of regulations. Earlier there were no such regulations. From the perspective of the owner of a factory or a mill, less restrictions, they are good. So can I say the earlier classical liberals, they were all those people or the earlier classical liberalism favors that entire section of society which is the emerging capitalist class, which wants to own, which wants to produce, and which does not want a lot of state intervention to restrict what they are doing. Can I say from their perspective, from the perspective of bourgeois, from the perspective of capitalist, from the perspective of owner, can I say the liberty is absence of restraints so that the state will not intervene? That's how they are looking at liberty. Now I'm asking you, think from the perspective of the worker. What does he want? Does he want state not to intervene, or will he want state to intervene and improve his situation and maybe pass acts like Factories Act of 1881? What does that person want? The one who is a worker. The question is, what does that person want? No intervention or more intervention? Because from there we are going to conceptualize something different. And after that, also think, what does the Indian Constitution mean when they write liberty in preamble? Because the word liberty is also mentioned in the preamble to the Indian Constitution. What is the meaning of that? Okay, I have an answer: more intervention. So the worker will be happy with the state intervening and improving things for him. Workers would want more intervention. Okay, where are the others? Where are the others? Why are not they not participating? If I am thinking from the perspective of that capitalist, I will conceptualize liberty like this. But if I am thinking from the perspective of somebody who is in a position which is not advantageous, I will probably define liberty in a different manner. Now go back and read what we have written, the views of T.H. Green. He is saying liberty is the freedom to do something worth doing. And the problem is the worker wants to do something worth doing, but he is all the time employed in that particular factory whereby he is working for 12-14 hours and he's not getting sufficient money also, and he does not have time to do what he really wants. He's simply doing it so as to run his family, or simply so as to as a means of his livelihood, but not necessarily something which he may consider doing. I'll give you an example. In China, there is a worker working in one of the factories of Apple whose job is simply to ensure and take care of the fact that every iPhone which is being built, it does not have a scratch. So he will get a lot of phones and he will look at the fact that there are no scratches. He'll probably polish it. His job is done. Is it something worth doing? It's a job. It's a job. He's getting paid for it. Is it something worth doing? T.H. Green is saying we want capabilities and opportunities to do something worth doing. That worker is not having those capabilities. That worker is not having those, let's say, opportunities. What needs to be done? State will come. State will do two things. One, state will improve his situation by telling the owner that what you need to do is you need to provide for a minimum wage. Second, you need to ensure that they are not overworking, and if they are overworking, then you have to pay them also. Third, you have to ensure that their working conditions are also fine. State will come, make a law and take care of this. First thing, it will help that person. Second, the state will say, don't worry, if you don't have money, I will sponsor education for you. Right to education. If you don't have money, don't worry, I will give you a scholarship so that you can go and prepare for civil services. In India, we have these programs where the state sponsors. The Maharashtra government sponsors, the Karnataka government sponsors, this kind of Scholarship which is given, what is this? It is state intervening so that you can develop that capability. So I'll tell you what happens. Coaching industry mein kya hota hai? They have a tie up with the government. The government will say, okay, we'll pay you 2 crore rupees and we are going to give you, let's say, 50 students or 100 students, and you are going to teach them. The money is not going to come from the pocket of the students. The money is going to come from the pocket of the government, because the government is sponsoring. Why? People should have capabilities so that they can attempt the civil services examination. That's state intervention. It helps those people, whether it is workers or students, to widen the ambit of how they are going to live. A person who does not have capabilities, who does not have money, let's say, cannot get this elitist education which is a part of civil services examination. He may not be getting it, and if he is not getting it, how can he dream for all those things which you can dream because you have resources? Here the argument is only for resources. I'm not including capabilities per se. Resources you have, that person does not have. He cannot think. His psychological liberty is less. He can't even think that far because he doesn't have the resources. T.H. Green is saying we need to change the situation. Change the situation for worker, change the situation for that student. Now, if you think from the perspective of the one who is in need or who is at a disadvantage, you are going to look at freedom from a very different lenses. Now the freedom is not absence of restraints. On the contrary, this freedom is all the opportunities and the capacities which one should have in order to grow. And the problem is, if you want to have opportunities, if you want to have capabilities or capacities, they will have to play a role. Here we are saying don't play a role. Here we are saying play a role. Whenever the state intervenes, that's a positive idea. Whenever the state will not intervene, it's a negative idea. Whenever. Are you able to make sense of this? Very quickly tell me. And I have another question. What is the meaning of the term liberty which is in preamble? Is it this or is it this? That's a UPSC PYQ. This was asked by UPSC few years back. And in the 4 statements, both the statements were there. There were 2 other statements which could be very easily eliminated, but the main concern was that the moment we use the word liberty, what is the meaning of that in Indian context? This is something which we are defining at a more academic level. And when I made my constitution and I used the word liberty, in preamble there is no definition of liberty. It's simply written liberty of thought, expression, faith, belief and worship. That's it. Oh, so sorry. This is what is written. Susanne is saying positive liberty is the meaning. Furkan is also saying positive liberty is the meaning. Why? Because it seems to be nice. Okay, this is a good idea. That's a better idea, huh? Is that the reason? Anything else which you know about this particular? Have you come across this PYQ in polity, whereby this question was asked? State will intervene, but reasonably. Okay, Dolly is saying positive liberty, but in India, the concept of principle distanced is follow. Okay, good. So we have some way through which we are going to intervene. 100%, you all are correct. And the answer UPSC gave was also this one. UPSC did not give this as the right answer but when this question came, it was a matter of huge controversy. Just like nowadays we are having controversies with respect to questions. Back then this was a matter of huge controversy because some were saying this is the meaning and some were saying this is the meaning. And when we look at the comments made by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And he has mentioned in his comments, as a part of one of his speeches, it is not written anywhere, that what India means by the word of liberty is that our state will intervene to provide for these opportunities and capacities or capabilities. That is a different thing, that this intervention has come at a much later stage after independence. We did not have capabilities back then. But that is essentially the meaning. So now you know two concepts or two definitions of freedom. Both are in liberal thought, one with the classical liberal, the other with the modern liberal. See, classical liberal ideas, they are definitely ideas which were relevant at one point of time, but we have to evolve. And now this is considered to be a much better idea. It will have its own problems also. Today, the capitalist will not want this. The capitalist will say, no, state, don't put restrictions on us like minimum wage. There are labor codes now. Earlier, it was not the case. Because it was not the case, that is why I'll tell you, that was also one of the reasons why socialism is going to emerge. Because socialism, at the end of the day, it is the ideology of working class. If liberalism is the ideology of capitalist class, socialism is the ideology of working class. So capitalist is working fine. The workers, they are also making their own union and they are coming with their own ideas, and they are going to now raise the banner of revolt against the capitalist. And that is where socialism comes into being. That was the historical context of the rise of socialism. Okay. So we have done the features of modern liberalism. Now, the last few lines, and then we'll end the class. Then we'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll go for neoliberalism. Very quickly, right? The conditions, uh, right from the point where we left, the conditions for the development of individual are to be created by the state. The conditions for the development of the individuals are to be created by the state. Full stop. This conceptualization of freedom, this conceptualization of freedom came to be known as positive liberty. This conceptualization of freedom came to be known as positive liberty. Full stop. The preamble to the Indian Constitution, the preamble to the Indian Constitution conceptualizes a similar notion of liberty. The preamble to the Indian Constitution conceptualizes a similar notion of liberty for its citizens. For its citizens. Okay. Now, in our journey, we are moving in this manner. After this, modern liberalism, and now a new strand of ideas came, neoliberalism. Okay. Why neoliberalism came into being? Modern liberalism was continuing. Modern liberalism, the earlier part of 20th century. During this time, what is happening? Let me talk a little bit about history here. I have classical liberalism coming up in the 18th century, primarily in the 18th century. By 1750s, the Industrial Revolution starts, and by that time, we see these ideas developing. See, when it comes to social sciences, we have a range. We can't pinpoint, okay, that classical liberalism came in 1750. It kept on growing, so it's always a range. We have this 18th century and 19th century as the time for classical liberalism. And in this 19th century itself, by the time of 1850, it has been more than 100 years actually to the classical liberal ideas. And by 1850, a certain kind of a reaction started coming. And this reaction came in the form of socialism, which kept on developing over a period of time. The moment we enter into the 20th century, what we have is socialism via Russian Revolution is moving forward. At the same time, modern liberalism is also continuing in Europe. And at the same time, we have a phenomena called fascism growing in countries like Germany and Italy, the major areas. Fascism was taken care of by the end of Second World War. Modern liberalism continued, but the moment we entered into 1970s, now the modern liberal ideas were questioned. Just like the classical liberalism was questioned, the modern liberalism is also coming to be questioned. Classical liberalism questioned by socialism, classical liberalism questioned by modern liberalism also. Now the neoliberalism is going to question modern liberalism and is going to bring forward new ideas. What are those new ideas? We'll come to know about that. During the same time, towards the later part of 80s and 90s, another strand called as social liberalism also started developing. So there are parallel developments. Chronologically, we'll have to see there are parallel developments. And towards the starting of 21st century, we also have libertarianism coming up. So neo-social, they are largely on the same time frame. This came a little later, and they also have some suggestions for us, in which these two are very important. This is of lesser significance because libertarianism ki jo ideology hai, there are very few takers, but there are a lot of takers of neoliberalism and social liberalism. So tomorrow what we'll do is, first we'll understand neoliberalism and then we'll look at social liberalism. Once we are done with this, then we just need to have a note on libertarianism. आज तक अभी इस पे क्वेश्चन नहीं आया है वैसे, but we'll see what the basic ideas are of libertarianism are. Once we are done with this, we'll be done with the topic of liberalism, but we are done with only the basics part. Then we'll go into a little bit more detail, understanding what is the significance of these ideas in 21st century, whether it is relevant today also or not. And at this point of time, I also have to tell you that when it comes to topics like liberalism, a lot of thoughts of liberalism will get evaluated in socialism also. So it's an interrelated topic. And that is why the first answer writing session which we'll be doing, we'll do after we are done with liberalism and socialism, at least these two. Before that, we'll not write any answers. Till that time, we'll try to understand only. Okay. But at your end, if you want to, after the class, let's say you are sitting at night and you want to revise and you want to attempt a question, then in my opinion, as of now, what you can do is you can start writing at your end very simple questions. For example, I would want you to write what are the major assumptions of classical liberals, and you'll have to write it in paragraph form. You can't write it in the point form as we have written in the notes. Final day, we have to write in paragraph form, and you have to try to include all assumptions in less than 200 words. If you want to do this activity, you can start doing this activity today itself. Okay. Less than 200 words, you have to try to write in paragraph form major assumptions of classical liberals. Directly from the class, try to include thinkers, or if you're not able to include thinkers, try to write. First, revise everything, absorb everything, then close your notebook, and then pick up a A4 size sheet and try to write. 200 words, you'll be able to write within 2.5 pages, but that depends on the font or your writing also. So, whatever be the case. Fine, it's 3 o'clock. Now, you guys go, have fun. I'll also have my lunch and I'll do my thing. So, I'm having class in the morning also, and by this time, I need a break. And then evening we have a class for the crash course students. So the schedule is absolutely packed these days. But that's a good thing. काम होना चाहिए. तुम्हारे पास अभी काम कम है. At least PSIR का. I am assuming GS का काम होगा तुम्हारे पास. वो भी करते रहना साथ साथ में. And that's it. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any kinds of doubts, feel free to message me on the WhatsApp. I'll take care of your doubts right away. If not, then have fun and let's meet tomorrow, same time. We'll continue with our discussion. Thank you once again.